Today is February 28th, 2025. I am Gabrielle Fellows with the Museums of Lake County, and this is an oral history interview with Roberta Lyons. Roberta, thank you for being here today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for doing this.
Of course.
It's a neat project.
So to get started, what can you tell us about your name? Were you named after anyone?
No, not that I know of.
And what is your date of birth and how old are you?
Well, my birthday's April 27th, 1951. I was born, I'm 74. I'm going to be 74. I'm 73 still.
And where were you born and raised?
I was born in Everett, Washington, and when I was around 3, my family moved to Woodland, Washington, and then when I was 5, we moved to Lower Lake in 1956. So I feel like I was really raised in Lower Lake. And then shortly after we moved, about a year after we moved to Lower Lake, we moved out to the Jago Bay community. And that's where I grew up, on the shores of Clearlake.
And what were your parents' names?
Ross and Bonnie Hatchett.
Do you have any siblings?
Well, I had 4. Both of my brothers have passed away. I still have 2 sisters who are alive, so yeah.
What are your sisters' names?
Catherine and Mary. One older sister and one younger sister.
And what do they do for a living?
Well, they're both retired. Mary lives on a farm down in San Diego. She's retired, and my younger sister Catherine lives in San Jose, and she has a little part-time job, but she's mostly retired. She was in the newspaper business with the family, like I was.
And talk about some of the ancestors that you know about.
Well, the ancestors I know about are the famous, Howland. We descend from Henry Howland, who actually came on the Mayflower on a boat called the Fortune, which came after his brother John Howland was on the Mayflower, and then his brother Henry came, I guess it was a couple years later. And so I think we descend from Henry Howland, not John Howland, but then my sister did some research, and it turns out we're also descended from an actual person who was on the Mayflower.
Oh, okay.
Too. So, and that's really not surprising, because you think about only 50 people survived that first winter. So there weren't very many people. And then when the Fortune came, the other ship came, it seemed pretty natural that people got together, so it was people on the Mayflower, people on the Fortune, and so that's kind of interesting. Howland is a very well-known Mayflower descendant name, and my mom's name was Howland. So there's quite a few. I mean, that long ago, there's thousands of people that are related to Mayflower, people. So.
Mm-hmm. And describe the neighborhood or community you grew up in.
Oh, I grew up in Jago Bay. It's mostly a resort, summer home community. It was built in 1936 by Louis Jago, John Jago's father, and McFarland, who owned a candy company in the Bay Area, and they bought this large property on the shores of Clearlake, and our subdivision is actually called the Crescent Bay Improvement Company, because it's really a water company. And there's a community beach, and most of the homes are summer homes, because it's a very steep hillside, and most of the homes or cabins, really large cabins, were on the shoreline. And people have to walk down really either a steep path or steep stairs to get to their cabins, so it didn't lend itself for year-round. Although now there are some people who live year-round out there. So, and I grew up on one end of the bay, and my family bought the estate. Well, I don't know if you'd call it an estate, but it was 2.5 acres on the one end that belonged to Mr. McFarland. And so he got one end of the bay. This is the way I theorize it. And then Louis Jago got the other end, which is where Jago's resort is. And so that's why we have so much property there instead of just a regular lot. And we have a driveway that goes down to our house, so we don't have to walk down a steep hill. And yeah, so that's where I grew up, in the big house. It was built in 1936.
And what did your father do for a living?
Well, he was the publisher of the Clearlake Observer, the newspaper. He was a publisher, printer.
And what did your
and
mom
writer.
do?
She was the editor. So yeah, they ran the Clearlake Observer, American newspaper, since we bought it in 1956 and sold it in 1987. And yeah, that's what they did. My mom was the writer, the reporter, the editor, and my dad and later my older brother were the printers, along with, we hired other people to work.
Tell me more about your parents.
Well, let's see, they met in college at Washington State University in Pullman, Washington. My dad grew up in a little town called Asotin in Washington, which is right on the Snake River. And of course, like everybody, he was born in 1916, so he grew up in the Depression. And his house is still there. That we go whenever we go up to that area to visit my cousins, we always stop by and visit his house. It's a really nice older Victorian. So they weren't desperately poor during the Depression, but they were poor like everybody. But they managed to hang on to their home. And my dad worked for the small newspaper there in Asotin. And I have a nice, cool picture of him in the back shop with the linotype machines and the owner of the paper. And then my mom grew up in Everett, Washington, and went to college, and that's where they met. My mom's parents were actors when they were young, and they were actors in a traveling roadshow and also in the theaters in Everett and other cities around the Northwest. But when the talkies came in, that kind of put a damper on that kind of local theater, and it wasn't even just local theater. It was paid professional theaters that they had, but they didn't want to. I guess they just didn't want to move to LA and try to break into the talkies. So they ended up owning a restaurant for many years.
Oh, what kind of restaurant?
Just a little Greasy Spoon. I don't even remember. My sister knows the name of it, but I don't remember the name of it.
Oh, okay.
Because I was pretty little when all that was going on. So, but yeah, and so they met at college, and then they lived in Everett. Well, my dad went to war. He was in World War II. He was the radio man on a Liberator bomber out of the South Pacific. He flew off of a little island called Morotai, and he flew one of the longest, or I think the longest bombing mission or something in the South Pacific. And so then when he got back from the war, they lived in Everett for a while. I'm not sure what they did there. And then they ended up buying a little newspaper in Woodland, Washington. And then we moved there. And then my mom did not like she just couldn't handle the climate in Washington. So they decided to move. They decided California was a good place to move. And there were 3 different newspapers, I think, for sale. And they chose the one that was in Lower Lake. And I think it's because it was not too far from the city. And it was back then especially, it was a really nice resort area, and it had a lot of potential, a lot more opportunity, let's say, than was in Woodland. And my mom was pretty ambitious, and so when they moved here, and she soon made a name for herself as the crusading editor of the Clearlake Observer.
So they called your mom the Hatchett Woman,
yeah, they did.
Right?
Some people did. A lot of people thought she was great because she took on the supervisors. But yeah, a lot of the supervisors didn't like her, Hatchett Woman. And that was even recalled, not recently, but I don't know. I was at the courthouse 30 years ago or something. Somebody mentioned that. It was kind of funny. It's like, yeah, no, people, the old timers around here still remember my mom and remember the Clearlake Observer was the best paper in the county. It was really it was a great newspaper. Everybody loved it. We were down, we were on this end of the lake, but if you wanted to know what was really going on, you had to read the Observer. So it was, yeah. So interesting time.
So tell me some of your earliest childhood memories.
Oh, swimming on Clearlake, swimming with the summer kids. That was always fun. And those are my main memories. Just every summer, plodding down to the beach, and we also would we'd walk down to Jago's store, and Mrs. Jago would put up with us, and we'd buy candy and look at the comic books, and then we had horses, of course. So I remember we used to do a lot of riding out in the hills, mostly eastern Lake County and Morgan Valley area. And that was fun, just going out for the whole day with your couple of friends and roaming around the hills on your horse. It was very fun.
And did you go to Sunday school?
I did. My mom was a Christian Scientist, and we went to the Christian Science Sunday School in Lakeport.
What was that like?
It was fine. We didn't do much, but I mean, I don't remember a whole lot about. I think we learned about the Psalms, and Christian Science doesn't have a lot of dogma, so they don't really try to, I don't know. It's not I don't really remember that much about what we did. I remember playing games. It was fine. It was fun.
And you were in the Lower Lake Days Parade in 1963, right?
I was, yes, and I think you picked that up from that picture I have of us riding in the parade. And that's another good memory, is we were members of the 4-H Light Horse Club, and Alta Parks was our advisor. And a lot of, again, the old timers are going to remember Alta. She was quite a character, and she had a ranch out down Perini Road, and she was an interesting woman, and she was our 4-H advisor. And so we were in that. We would ride in the Lower Lake Days Parade, and that was a particularly memorable one, because actors from Hollywood came, and it was Don Collier, who was in The Outlaws. So I don't know if anybody would remember that, and I remember sitting in the Sportsman's Cafe, and he walked in, and like my memory says he was with Slim Pickens, who was also in that TV show, but he's not in the picture that I have. Don Collins was definitely there. It's not a phony memory or anything, because there's a picture of him, but I think Slim Pickens came with him. Somebody came with him, and so we were very excited about that, because we all watched that show. And Lower Lake Days was really fun. Just local celebrations were fun.
How was the parade different back then than the way it is now?
I haven't been to one lately, so I don't know. I don't really like parades all that much, so I tend not to go to them. But I don't know. I mean, they still have horses, and maybe it isn't that much different. They had fire trucks back then and floats. I don't know. They still have floats, and so I can't really say.
And talk about meeting Tennessee Ernie Ford.
Oh yeah, well that was just because my dad, being with the local paper, he was the photographer too, and when Tennessee Ernie Ford would come up here, it was a news item, it was something to cover for the paper, and so my dad took us, my sister Mary, my older sister Mary, and I up to, I think it was at Forest Lake where he used to golf up on Cobb, and got that nice picture of us. So I don't really remember. He was a very nice man. That's all I remember. I was kind of shy. I probably didn't try to talk to him much.
And what stories have been passed down in your family?
I was thinking about that, and I think most of the stories were kind of recent ones, more like my mom's battle with the supervisors and her successful, campaign to force Yolo County to renegotiate the operation of the dam on Cache Creek. That was a huge event in her life, and really an important event for the county too, because if it wasn't for her and her friends, the whole, you know, the way the lake is operated would be a lot different. It would be to the detriment of the county, and she fought that. That's one of the reasons some of the supervisors didn't like her, because at that time, a lot of the supervisors were farmers from Lakeport and Kelseyville, and they weren't too concerned about the resort owners, and the resort owners were up in arms because they were going to sign off and let Yolo County draw the lake down to zero every year because of they were building Indian Valley Dam, which they were going to use as backup. Whereas before they could never draw the lake down to zero because they needed backup. But when they were going to have when they got Indian Valley Dam in place, it's like, oh, we could just take all the water out of Clear Lake first, and then we'll go to Indian Valley. And that was, and that now what we have is the Solano Decree, and that regulates how much water Yolo can take based on how high the lake is. And that all came out of my mom, John Jago, Teresa Raffesi, and quite a few other people whose names I can't remember. But it's all in the old copies of the newspaper, which are fortunately saved at, they reside in Lakeport at the Veterans Museum up there. So fortunately, all that information is still available. Most people don't remember it.
And did you have a best friend as a kid?
Yeah, I had several. I grew up with Winnie Anderson. She lived out in where we live, you know, of Anderson Marsh family. And Winnie and I used to play together a lot, and we'd ride together. And her dad was developing the Sunrise Shore subdivision. And we used to ride our horses over from my place. And we used to keep our horses at our place in Jago Bay for a while. And we'd ride our horses over around the point to the subdivision he was developing, and we'd mostly go catfishing. It wasn't a great place for swimming because it was kind of murky. If you know that part of the lake, it's where the the creek goes into the marsh, and it's a lot of sediment and stuff. So it's not really it wasn't a great place to swim, but it was fun to fish. So Winnie and I played together a lot, and then Sybil Day, and when I was young, Laura Lee Walker, who's passed away a couple of years ago. Those were my Lower Lake friends when I was really young, and then as I got older, I had other friends and other friends in high school, Carlene Ackerman, and so there were a lot of people that I was friends with.
And did you have any pets as a child?
Oh yeah, I was a real animal nut. We had dogs and cats, and then at one point, I think I had a hamster, a king snake, a white rat, and baby field mice.
Whoa.
In my room. and the field mice escaped. And I found them, months later I'd find these little mice. I thought I could save them. Somehow they got disturbed somewhere, and the mother was gone, and somebody gave me all these baby mice, and I was like, oh, I'll see if I can take care of them, but of course I couldn't. But yeah, so I had, in those days you could get those little painted turtles in San Francisco, and they always escaped too. They'd climb out and sort of disappear in the house somewhere. But yeah.
What was the snake's name?
Oh, what was his name? He was a king snake. I did have a name for him. I don't know. I don't remember. Maybe I'll think of it. My hamster was Judge Garth, because I was a big fan of The Virginian, and that was a character in the TV show The Virginian. I don't know why I picked Judge Garth, but I used to take him to school in the pocket. I had a sweater like when I have on it with pockets, and I put my hamster in there and take him to school. He would just sleep all day.
So what schools did you go to?
Lower Lake. I went to kindergarten at Burns Valley because I didn't have a kindergarten in Lower Lake. And then I went to Lower Lake Elementary and then Lower Lake High School. Graduated in 1968.
And what was your favorite subject in school?
Probably history and English. I always enjoyed writing.
And you were part of the pep club at Lower Lake High School, right?
I was a pom-pom girl.
Talk about that a little bit.
Oh, well, it was just, it was Yeah, it was just a typical kind of cheerleader, pom-pom girl thing back then. Some of it was, I wasn't that popular, but somehow I managed to it was really kind of a popularity contest, which after a while I really kind of thought, oh, this isn't so great, you know. But anyway, it was fun. I had, you know, nice girls that I was doing it with, and we'd go to the football games and, you know, do our little routines. We had to practice. We had to come up with our own, with outfits. So we had to design our own outfits, and some of the girls made their own. I couldn't sew, so I think I had somebody made mine for me. And then yeah, we just would practice, have routines, dance routines. It was fun.
Did you have a favorite teacher in high school?
I think it was probably my English teacher was Mr. Garrison. I liked him a lot. And then I don't know. I wasn't. I didn't do. I mean, I wasn't non-academic, but I wasn't really. Like, I wasn't very good in math and algebra and that kind of thing. But I did. Everybody liked Mr. James, of course, Bob James. But I don't remember him being my teacher for anything. He was the counselor, but he was very popular. Everybody liked him.
And did you go to prom?
I did a couple times, yeah. Those aren't really my highest memories. I don't remember that much about it. It was fun. We had live bands and, yeah.
What were some of your highest memories?
Oh, from high school?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. I don't know if I have too many that actually involved high school. I think they were more, you know, after hours, like, oh, cutting school and going water skiing with the guys. That's one. That's just one that stands out. Except that I got caught.
Uh-oh.
But yeah, it wasn't that bad. I got caught and my parents grounded me, and then my dad changed his mind because I used to cover the basketball games. He'd give me the camera and, you know, set it on F8 and say, oh, go take pictures. I'm like, okay. And so he was like, oh, okay, you can go to the basketball games when I was grounded. So.
You took pictures or you filmed?
Oh no, I took pictures. Yeah,
oh, cool.
Just for the paper. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I did a lot. I used to cover the parades too, like the Redbud Parade, but let's see so mainly that was it. But you know, high school was fun.
So you did reporting in high school?
Just stuff like that. Just taking pictures at, you know, at the games once in a while. So yeah.
And how has the world changed since you were young?
Oh. Well, you know, probably everyone says this, but mainly just technology. I mean, the idea of, you know, having a phone at your disposal when you need to, you know, sometimes my friends go, what did we do when we didn't have phones? You know, now if we go shopping, you know, we could text each other, well, I'm over here in the, you know, shoe department or whatever. And we managed to keep track of each other. And I mean, we had home phones, of course. But yeah, so just technology and computers, the writing and emailing, and just a lot of things. A lot of things are easier, but you know, I'm not sure it's always a good thing. But yeah, so I would just say technology has changed the most, and so, you know, social media. It's really it's a big influence in people's lives now.
Did you have any goals or dreams for when you grew up?
You know, I was thinking about that question too, and I just had things that I liked to do, but I didn't have a real plan of, you know, well, I want to do this. When I was pretty young, I thought, oh, it'd be cool to be an archaeologist, but I was never good in science, so that I didn't get very far with that. But I liked, I liked to write. I always liked to write, and I liked nature. So and so I very easily evolved into, working for the family paper after, graduating, going to school for a year, coming home, and then ending up here, off and on, and just writing for the paper, and I enjoyed that. And then I was also interested in environmental issues, so then I sort of started my career as an environmentalist, which was a unpaid career, of course, as it is, usually. But yeah, so I would say those are my interests.
So what college did you go to?
Just Santa Rosa JC, and then I finally got my BA degree from Sonoma State.
What was it in?
Liberal studies.
Okay.
That's what I was interested in.
And then you went to
Humanities.
work at the Clearlake Observer?
Oh no, I didn't get my BA degree until I was 47.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I just took classes off and on. I went to Yuba College. I loved Yuba College, locally, Woodland Community College now. But yeah, I had a great teacher there, Roz Ashby. She was the humanities teacher, and it was fabulous. It was really a fun time. And it was in the 80s.
So when did your family purchase the Clearlake Observer?
1956.
And how long did they own it?
Until 1987, I'm pretty sure.
Why did they buy it?
Well, because my mom wanted to move to California, and it was the best paper. They could have purchased a paper in Tule Lake or Corning, and they chose Clear Lake, Lower Lake, because, I don't know, probably the lake had something to do with it. I mean, it was a beautiful area. I mean, it still is a beautiful area.
So talk about being a reporter and the issues you covered.
Well, I started writing for the paper when I was pretty young. When I was really young, in high school, I used to write, in the old days, I used to do these sort of social columns, and I would call up some of the local ladies or members of, like, the Rebeccas, and you'd call them and say, what are you ladies doing? Anything happening? Or the Lionesses, and then, so I would write like a social column, or so-and-so went to see their son this weekend in San Francisco, stuff like that. And nobody reports it like that anymore. And then I did a lot of, started obituaries. And then I was interested in environmental issues, so I just started covering, there was the first one like that, I think, was over on the sort of the west shore. Some property owners were cutting down trees where herons were nesting. So, although I don't think I did a story on that later, not for the Observer, but anyway, but one of the big stories we covered was when John Parker was working to get Anderson Marsh as part of purchased and preserved by the state of California as a state park. And so my brother John and I, he was the photographer, we went out and toured the marsh with John Parker and got a lot of photos and talked, and I interviewed him, and we did this big spread on why it was so important to save Anderson Marsh and the ranch. And mostly it was John's main emphasis was all the archaeological sites. It was one of the most heavily populated areas by the indigenous, people, Native Americans here, and it was completely unprotected. So we did a big double truck story on that, and then he used that story. He would take that he took that to Sacramento with him when he talked to politicians, and it, just really raised the awareness for everyone of how important that acquisition would be. And so that was a very successful, one of my successful campaigns. And then we report on geothermal issues. Everybody thinks geothermal is, so clean and environmentally friendly, which it's way better now than it was. But back then it was polluting the air and the water up on Cobb Mountain. So I covered stories on that. I worked with Boris Brumfield, who was very instrumental in getting them to clean up the way they I think it was dispose of their wastewater. They were somehow discharging something in Anderson Creek, which was like flows right by her house. And so, and that was an interesting project too.
So talk about your interview with Jack Thompson, the manager of the Homestake mine.
Oh, I just went out to the Homestake with my brother, who was taking the pictures that day. And, you know, because we were with the local newspaper, and that was the big thing that was happening. And I think that was about 1982, maybe somewhere around there. And yeah, I just interviewed him. He told me about what the process was, and took me on a little tour of some of the old mining adits, which are the tunnels. And I don't remember, a whole lot about talking to him. But he was just a really nice man, and it was interesting being out there.
What was your favorite story that you covered?
My favorite story, probably the Anderson Marsh story. I got the most satisfaction out of that.
And what was the most difficult story you covered?
Well, difficult, and none of them were really difficult. It's just, some were like emotionally difficult. Like I think there were a couple of stories about accidents of young people losing their lives in these horrible car accidents. Those were kind of trying, just sad. And then I was I was thinking about that too, and I never found it. I mean, it's not really difficult to cover a story if you have the time and the energy to delve into things and call people up and talk. You have to call people up and talk to them, find out and also try to find out if what they're saying is true, which is one of the issues I have with reporting nowadays by, some reporters, is they just go to meetings and report what people say instead of trying to find out if it's true or not. And that was something I learned from my mom. Just take people's, especially politicians. But, I like politicians. I have lots of friends who are politicians, but my mom had a thing about them. So, yeah, where were we? I was about, the difficult stories. Yeah, I can't recall a particular one.
And what was your least favorite topic to cover?
Least favorite? I don't know what that is either. Probably accident stories, because they're just kind of depressing. Nothing really stands out. Later on, after we sold the Observer, I worked for the Times-Star for a while, and I used to cover the Clearlake City Council. And at that time, I think the city council's, fine now, but at that time, that's my least favorite, because, and even though it wasn't working for the Observer, it was still, covering stuff, and it was just really frustrating, because I felt the people that were on the city council at the time didn't really know what they were doing. It was just boring, and people would go on and on. So yeah, stuff like that, just long, boring council meetings where you have to suffer fools.
And what companies advertised with the Clearlake Observer?
Oh, gee, all the small businesses. Back then, there were just lots of small businesses. That was another job I had. I sold advertising. I did a lot of things, yeah. I sold advertising, and you just go to like the local shoe store and the local like Ford's Variety and Brumfield's, and there were lots of different small, retail mom and pop type stores. And then of course, Economy Food Market was a big one. They were practically a whole page, and Knott's Food Market. And then when then Safeway came in, and that they were huge. Sometimes they would run what's called a double truck, which is a 2-page ad, basically. And so, yeah, I would say Safeway was probably our biggest. And then there are other big advertisers too as time went on. But yeah, the grocery stores were important. People used to religiously read the grocery ads when they came out every week.
How was journalism different back then from what it is now?
Well, where do I start? Well, I think journalism is the same. It's just how journalists are being able to exist, and they're not, because the papers, local papers especially, and big papers too, are just disappearing all over the country because of the internet. Now, some have successfully gone to online papers, and we have a good online paper here, Lake News, and the Record Bee is online and print still. But it's really hard for any newspaper to make it now, because people don't want to advertise, and advertising is where you get your money to pay people. It isn't just subscriptions. And so if you don't have advertising, you're not going to be able to exist. And then you have companies like Alden Global Capital, which is a vulture capitalist fund, they're called, and they own almost every paper, including the Record Bee, in California. All the smaller papers, like the Willits paper, I think they own the Ukiah Daily Journal now, the Chico paper. They closed down the San Jose Mercury News. They own the San Jose Mercury. No, they closed down, they closed down the, I don't know, it was another paper in San Rafael that they closed down. But they still have the San Jose Mercury News is running, but it's owned by Alden Global. And their model is to, they can't keep the paper going at a bare bones level. Their model is to shut down it's just to run it into the ground and then sell out the assets. And so the Observer closed. There was a victim of Alden Global. And
okay.
I don't think, it's a hedge fund. All they care about is making money.
That's why the Observer closed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, because it was purchased by, well, it was eventually purchased by the same company that owns the Record Bee, and the Record Bee didn't, they own Media News Group and Digital First are the other names for this hedge fund that owns all the media. So it's really sad, because it's you can't, like, if you were a cub reporter or somebody in journalism, you want to get into the world of journalism, and especially, like I said, local journalism, you're out of luck. And local journalism is so important, because now, again, like I said, it gets reported what people say at the city, what the council members and supervisors say. And I mean, sometimes when, the editors of both of them are still, local, well, Lake News is truly local, and the Record Bee, they do the best they can, but they're short-staffed. They've got one person. And so when they really do delve into things, but it's difficult. And so it's a danger. It's a danger to our democracy, where the newspapers are the fourth estate. It's the other, entity that's supposed to be watching over government and the people that are, running things. And if you don't have that, we're in trouble. So, yeah. I'll get off my soapbox now.
So talk about the paper your family owned after the Observer.
Oh, the Revelry, the Cloverdale Revelry. Yeah, we sold, my dad passed away, and then just for a lot of different reasons, we decided to sell the Observer. So we sold the paper, sold the Observer, I think it was 87, and then my mom, the person we sold it to, he's offered for my mom to take the Cloverdale Revelry as part of the note, you know. It was just a little 8-page weekly paper in Cloverdale. And so my mom was she was really sad after my dad died, and she needed something to do. She wasn't ready to retire. So she said, okay, so we ended up with the Cloverdale Revelry, and we ran that paper for 25 years. And that was a fun job. I just worked part-time. I'd go over 2 days a week, and I did the layout and stuff, and mostly wrote, and then once a month I would go over and cover the school board, spend the night over there with my mom, and so that was a really good solution. It was an easy paper. No, there was no competition, and it was a very popular little paper. But it is closed down too. It was the oldest. It was the oldest continuously published paper in the state. It was established in 1876, I think, as a legal newspaper, and was published under the same name. And then after we sold it in, I think, 2013, the new owner just couldn't keep it going.
What were some big stories in Cloverdale?
Big stories, well, the bypass, of course, which started up a few years after we got there, the 101 bypass, that was a big story. A lot of people were not happy about that, but if you go to Cloverdale now and drive down the main street, it was the best thing for the town. It's got a real cute downtown now with lots of cute shops and stuff, so that was a big story. And then we had some gory ones too, and sad ones, like Polly Klass's body was found there. That was upsetting to a lot of people. And the establishment of the new river park, that was important. Just, your kind of typical small town, everyday things. The museum, the battle to save the historical house that the museum originally was in. There was some controversy about that, and of course we took up the cause of saving this old house, the oldest house in the town. So we were successful too at that. But yeah, that kind of thing.
Do you think reporters should give their opinion when they're covering stories?
My mom sure did. You have to be careful. The opinions are for editorial. For editorials, you have to present both sides, right? And make sure both sides are truthful. So in that sense, no. But if you read some of my mom's old stories, I guess she would not say they were exactly unbiased, especially the articles that she was writing about when she was trying to, save Clearlake, basically. So you have to be careful about it and follow up. If you have some really strong opinions, use editorial. But you can't help it. If you really believe in something, it's going to be kind of hard not to slant your story towards what you believe in. So.
And do you still write?
Yeah, I write. I do my newsletters now for the, I don't write the whole thing, but I work on them, and I write things for the Lake County Land Trust and the Redbud Audubon Society and Anderson Marsh Interpretive Association. I write some things for all of those. And I've been known to write a letter to the editor now and then, but I don't do much of that lately. So
who was your favorite boss and why?
My favorite boss?
Yeah.
My mom. Just because I admired her, and she was a good boss. She always gave me good critiques, and she was, interesting lady. She was my boss. I always worked for the paper. I didn't really have any bosses. I didn't work for anybody else but my family. Well, many years ago, I was a waitress for a while, but no, I worked in the family business all my life.
And are you married, and do you have children?
I'm married to Harry Lyons, who was a professor at the Yuba Community College for many years. Dr. Lyons, he's famous in his own right. He was basically the biology department, I think, at Yuba. He taught He taught ecology, but he also taught microbiology and physiology. Yeah, he taught a lot of science. He had a lot of nurses who were his students, taught statistics at some point. And yeah, and we have a daughter, Kate, who's 34 now. And she works for Salesforce. She has a PhD in linguistics and is a data scientist now and lives in Illinois with her husband, who is a professor at the University of Illinois.
How did you meet Harry?
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I met Harry. I met him at a peace dance in Lower Lake. Well, actually, I'd sort of met him before because he had moved up here and when I met him, he was a vineyard manager, and he's a musician. He was playing guitar, and he was playing guitar around different areas. And I think I just met him briefly through one of our columnists, a guy named Art Stillwell. He used to cover music, and he was a big fan of Harry. Somehow I just remember running into him and meeting Harry. But I really met him at a dance, at a peace dance. It was an anti-nuke dance at Lower Lake High School. It was put on by the Peace Network. And Peter Wyndham was there, and I was there with a friend of mine, and he says, why don't you come over and sit with us, because Peter and Kathy, his wife, were there, and they brought Harry to this dance because he had just split up with his wife. And so, yeah, that's how I met him. We danced. My English friend who I was with really liked Harry.
And what role do you play with the Anderson Marsh Interpretive Association?
I'm the president. I've been the president for 20 years. But yeah, the other people on the board probably do more than I do. But yeah, I'm just involved when we have events. I chair the meetings and I participate in the events that we put on, which aren't as many as there used to be because we used to have Anderson Marsh Christmas at the ranch, but we haven't done that since the fires years ago. The ranch house was evacuated. They took all the stuff out and they haven't put it back yet. So we don't do anything at the ranch house anymore. But I lead walks, like I'm leading a walk next Saturday. We do monthly second Saturday walks. And I work, my friends Gay Henry and Henry Bornstein are very active. They do a lot. We went to a state park conference in November at a Lamar. Yeah, so we just try to keep the focus on Anderson Marsh State Historic Park and keep the state interested in it and try to keep, just try to keep the interest up in the park because the park's not a moneymaker because there's no camping. So sometimes it kind of, they do the best they can, but it gets overlooked sometimes, I feel.
And talk about your involvement with the Redbud Audubon Society.
Yeah, I've been involved with Audubon Society since 1987, I think, pretty early. And I started doing the newsletter. I wanted to get involved in some kind of environmental organization, and so I called up my friend who I knew was involved, and that's why I started doing the newsletter, and I still do the newsletter after all those years. And I've been president off and on, and my friend Suzanne Scholes and I founded the Heron Festival, which we did for years, and then Marilyn Waits ran it for a while, and then we finally, COVID was the last time we had that, and then we haven't been able to pull it together since it is too much work for volunteers, and that's one of the problems that a lot of these organizations are facing now is all of the steadfast volunteers are just getting older and kind of tired, and so we're all still involved, but something like the Heron Festival just got sort of beyond our ability to pull it off, and it was a fun event. It was too bad it couldn't keep going, but yeah, so I'm just very involved. We have monthly meetings, we have bird walks, I lead walks, I'm on the Conservation Committee. We comment to the Board of Supervisors about different projects. And my friend Donna Makowitz is the president now. She's very active. So it's still a good group of people.
What's your favorite bird?
Oh gosh. Yeah, my favorite bird, that's a good one. If I have a favorite, of course I like the western grebes and great blue herons. If I had to just say a favorite bird, I don't think I can. They're all, they're all fun. It's been fun being able to see. I saw 2 bald eagles this morning flying over my house. So
Whoa.
we have eagles that are nesting near where I live, and it's just, when I was growing up here, we didn't have eagles, and we hardly had any grebes. We used to call them hell divers, but now the grebes have repopulated, and so that's encouraging. It's probably more bird life on Clearlake than when I was a kid because of the lingering effects of treating the lake with DDD, which is DDT, basically.
Mm-hmm. So you were a founding member of the Preservation Committee. Why did you get involved?
Oh, the Lower Lake Historical School Preservation Committee. And I remember when we came up with that name, we're like, gee, that's a long name, but what else are we? I'm just a history buff. I love history. I love old buildings. And this building was slated, I think the firemen were going to burn it down as a demonstration or something. And so Jane Weaver and Barbara and Les Parker and Roberta Coltman and me, there must have been somebody else on that committee. And we just formed this committee and started doing little fundraising things and tabling, and I wrote a story about it, and that because of that story, and I think, I'm not sure, I don't think it was in the Observer then. I think we'd sold the Observer already. But anyway, a local person read that story and donated $20,000. And so that gave us the impetus to start, repairing it. And we did a pigeon exclusion project and that kind of thing. And yeah, it was just, and we, talked the Board of Supervisors, because it's owned by the county. So we were able to talk the Board of Supervisors into not tearing it down or burning it. So that was, we just wanted to save it.
And what was Jane Weaver like?
Oh, she was great. Just very, very sweet lady, very enthusiastic, a hard worker. I sort of gave up on it, because I had Kate, so in 1990, and so that just, I didn't quit everything, but I had to choose, I was still involved with Audubon, and I was still, that time it was just Audubon, and then so I resigned from the committee. But yeah, she was really, she and John were just fabulous, and the way they worked on this place. If it weren't for them, it wouldn't have probably continued to be, to turn into what it has, which is just a really great museum and an event center.
And talk about the Lake County Land Trust and explain what it is.
Okay, well, the Land Trust we're a private nonprofit organization that's dedicated to preserving important natural habitat in Lake County, and we do that through mostly fee purchase, which we have some major projects now, properties that we've purchased, and we do that by developing the project and presenting the idea to the Fish and Wildlife, Department of Fish and Wildlife, and then if they like it, they approve it, and then it goes to the Wildlife Conservation Board for funding, which is the sort of the land acquisition arm of the Department of Fish and Wildlife. And our first project was the Robin Preserve it's between Upper Lake and Lakeport. The total project was over 400 acres, but what got preserved as a nature preserve is 234 acres, which is jointly owned by the Land Trust and the CDFW. And we have a little nature center there, which we're in the process of. We've rebuilt the nature center, but now we're in the process of upgrading it. And we got a really good grant from the energy company, AES Energy, that's wants to build a wind facility out in Morgan Valley. And so they gave us a nice grant to upgrade our nature center, which was really nice of them. Okay, so the land trust, we founded the land, I'm going to get back to the beginning now, it was Suzanne Scholes and I went to an Audubon conference at Asilomar, and we started hearing about this fund called the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is a federal fund. And we thought, we should get money for that to buy a certain property. And I think at the time we were looking at, I don't know, some property on the west shore of the lake. And then we realized, well, if you're going to do that, you have to have an entity. You have to. So we thought, and then we started learning about land trusts. And so we just pushed it through. I was sort of the lead person, but I couldn't have done it without a lot of other people helping me. I'm going to take credit for pushing it through and being the lead, but I also, if it weren't for my friends like Mary Benson, who was our first secretary, she did the incorporation papers, and Suzanne, and John Graham, the late John Graham, he was on our board, and we had some good, early board members, Kim Kleinmeyer, who was head of the parks system in Lake County. So it was a joint effort of all of us, and we founded the land trust. And then Peter Windrum helped us with our first project, which was Rodman. And he showed us how to do an option on the property, negotiated. There were 4 different escrows on that property that he negotiated. He did this all pro bono. And I always say, if it weren't for Peter, we wouldn't be here either. So it was really a group effort of a lot of people making it happen. And now we've really become successful. We've grown a lot. I think we have almost 300 members, and we have amazing donors, and we have organizations like the Pitzer Foundation, which is the Claremont colleges down in Southern California, and they have a home in Buckingham, and they just happened to see us at a tabling event at a Heron Days, and I talked to the lady, and they decided to support us. So it's interesting how, everybody thinks there's no money in Lake County, but there is. and so we're quite happy with, and then we have we've had a great presidents over the years. Val Nixon is the president now. She's been president for 10 years. And our new board, not new, but she's been with us a few years, Mary Jo Velasquez is a wonderful grant writer, and so she's gotten us grants, and we were able to hire an executive director with a grant. We don't have to pay for her through just our donor base, which even though we have a really great donor base, we have 2 part-time employees, but we don't really still have enough money quite to hire a full-time executive director, which we need now because our projects has just gotten beyond what we as volunteers can do. But it's a really, it's been a great success. I think that's probably the most important thing I've ever done in my life, is be involved with the land trust. And I'm still on the board, and I'm still very much involved. I probably will be till I die. So is that enough information about the land trust? So join the land trust, everybody. It's worth it. Come out to one of our properties. We lead guided hikes. Our goal is to open our properties more to the public as soon as we have the capacity to do so. We will, and we also do private hikes. If somebody really wants to look at the property, we'll take them out there. So, yeah.
So how would you describe your personality?
Oh, my personality. I don't know. I like to think I'm sort of funny. I'm fairly outgoing. I was very shy as a child, which I think most people are. But over the years, I've learned to be more, sociable, and I enjoy talking to people. I'm nosy. I like to find out about people and, what they're up to, where they're from, what they do, and I'm kind of like a little bit enjoy gossip, but I don't like to admit that. But yeah, I guess that's personality. I don't know. I like to think I'm funny. And let's see, what else? I don't know. I like to dance. I like to. I love music. So.
What's your favorite music?
Oh God. Well, like rock and roll, you know, is Grateful Dead and, oh, Jackson Browne and the Eagles, Bob Dylan, of course. And now I like indie music a lot, and I actually like some rap. I try to keep an open mind about rap and hip hop, and some of that I like. But lately, I listen to a lot of classical music now. I like opera too, and my dad was a big opera fan. So I got a taste for opera at a young age, and I love opera. So I listen to opera on Saturday. I listen to the Metropolitan Opera, and we used to go to the San Francisco Opera with Kate. And Kate, my daughter, is now a big fan of opera. She's really a fan, and that she can name arias and artists and things that I'm still not able to do. But yeah, so.
So what kinds of hobbies do you have? How do you spend your time?
Yeah, hobbies. Mostly writing stuff on the computer for the land trust, but other than that, I like photography. I like music. I play guitar a little bit, but just for myself. And those are hobbies. I'm a collector, but I don't do much collecting anymore. But I have quite a few display cases in my house I like pottery. I like American art pottery or commercial art pottery, really. Most art pottery I can't really afford, and then I like, I guess I'm just a fan of old stuff, so I am a collector, and I have a lot of, I'm not really an archivist, but I have a lot of, I just hang on to stuff. I hang on to records and just old information, stuff that I think is interesting. So I'd say that's a hobby, being a collector.
What's something you didn't do in your life that you regret now?
Probably playing the guitar more, starting when I was younger and actually being more, I'm not very dedicated to it. So, and I think it, probably could be pretty good, but I'm too lazy. And I'm learning to read music, but I still haven't quite mastered just the first 18 notes in the first position. But I was always, that's probably the only thing that I regret. What else? Well, I mean, everybody has lots of regrets. I wish I'd talked to my parents more. I wish I'd talked to my dad more about his experiences in the war and just his life in general. But, it's kind of interesting because people, my parents' generation, the greatest generation, they didn't talk about stuff. They didn't like to delve into their emotions or their trauma that much. And I know my dad was traumatized by the war. He, sitting in this rattle-trap B-24 Liberator bomber, flying for, hundreds of miles. And it was a bad plane. They never knew if they were going to get back. But, stuff like that. But it's too late now.
What would you describe as the best day of your life?
Oh, God. Best day of my life. Sheesh. Well, I mean, one of the best days was, the best thing in my life probably was meeting my husband. I have to, not even one, like a day that I can, it wasn't like our day that we got married or anything. It's just, but that's the best thing in my life that I could think of. It's really been great having such a great person in my life. And then, I suppose I should say the day my daughter was born, but actually, she's the other most important thing in my life, but, as a baby, she wasn't. It was just like very, it was hard work. She was a crybaby. She cried all the time. It was pretty traumatizing for both of us. We were just like, I guess we ruined our lives, but whatever. But fortunately, that doesn't last very long. Best day of my life. Well, one of the high points, I guess, was when we first learned that Fish and Game was going to buy Rodman. That was huge. We had a lot riding on that. I remember that really well. You know, there's just a lot of things.
What's the best advice you could give journalists of the 21st century?
Oh, God. Don't. Find something else to do if you think you're going to make money at it, or if you can even make a decent living. Yeah, it's very sad. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I guess could be some sort of public funding effort, but that would be the only way to go, is to find a newspaper that does, you know, if you're going to find somewhere to work, find someplace that's got a steady income stream, because it's not going to work out for you otherwise.
How do you think journalism is going to be in the next 50 years from now?
I don't know. It does not have a good. I mean, probably on a national level, it'll be okay. You know, the stuff is getting exposed. Of course, you know, it depends on what side you're on and that sort of thing. But I hope that at least on a national level, we can still keep hearing the truth, and, you know, but locally, I just would encourage people to support their truly local paper, like Laco News. You need to support her. You need to support that paper, and, you know, subscribe. If you're reading the paper for free online, send her $50. That's what, $50 a year, that's the subscription. And that's where it's going to be. It's going to be online, and it's a very iffy situation. Concerned about it. I'm very concerned about it.
And what's the best advice you could give future generations?
Well, try to find out what's true, what's going on, and don't just be focused on one, you know, just don't just watch Fox News, okay? I'm just going to be out there with my politics, because I just, you know, my advice is try to figure out and think for yourself, and just, you know, think and read actual books. Okay, read them on your Kindle if you have to, but, you know, come on. It's just, oh my God, yeah. Try to find out the truth.
Is there anything else you want to share?
Yes, just that, you know, I've lived in Lake County off and on all my life. I live in the house I grew up in. I love it here, and I love Clearlake. It's really a fabulous lake. It's one of the oldest lakes in the world, and it's the oldest lake, probably the oldest lake in the northern hemisphere. It's at least 500,000 years old, and it could be 1,000,000 years old. I mean, it hasn't always had the same configuration in those 500,000 years, but there's been water where it is now. And I wish that people would learn about the lake and appreciate it, and don't refer to it as just, you know, like a toxic mess and everything, because it's not. It's just a nutrient-rich body of water that's been severely impacted by, you know, civilization around the shores of the lake. When white man came, they just screwed everything up, and it's just it's really a fascinating lake with lots of great natural history, lots of bird life, and people should appreciate it more. Try to at least get out on it and see what people are trying to talk about. And yeah, just the county in general is really beautiful, and I hope that we could preserve it as much as we can. So that's all I'd like to add.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with me today and for sharing your stories.
Oh, sure. Well, yeah, thank you for doing this. I think it's a good project. Appreciate it. Thank you.